Frank was a simple man with a big dream. He wished to be the hardest being in the world. He was tired of feeling weak and vulnerable and wanted to be able to withstand anything that life threw at him. One day, Frank stumbled upon an old book that promised to grant wishes to those who were pure of heart. Without hesitation, Frank wished to become the hardest being in the world. To his surprise, his wish was granted, and Frank began to feel a strange power coursing through his veins. He was stronger than he ever imagined, and his skin was now as hard as steel. He was invulnerable to anything that came his way. Frank was overjoyed at first, but as time passed, he began to realize that his newfound strength came with a price. He was now isolated from those he loved, as his hardness made it impossible for him to feel their touch or show any emotion. Despite this, Frank was determined to use his powers for good. He roamed the world, stopping criminals and saving lives, becoming known as the Invincible Man. However, Frank's thirst for power continued to grow, and he soon became ruthless and merciless in his pursuits. He no longer cared about the consequences of his actions and terrorized entire cities, believing that his hardness made him invincible. But as time passed, Frank's powers began to corrupt him. He became greedy and lustful for more power, and eventually turned to using his abilities for evil. He became a tyrant, ruling with an iron fist and terrorizing those around him. The world was plunged into darkness, as Frank's hardness had made him immune to the suffering of others. He was consumed by his own power, and had become the very thing he had once hated. In the end, a group of heroes banded together to stop Frank and bring an end to his reign of terror. In a final showdown, Frank was defeated, but not before he had caused immeasurable damage to the world. Frank's hardness had ultimately made him weak, as his heart had become cold and filled with darkness. He had let his power consume him, and in the end, had become the hardest being in the world, but also the weakest. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking the video and subscribe to be notified of freshly baked, frightfully generic stories.